Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome in this second session for the Forum for Scaling, Internationalization and Cross-Border Trade. For those who didn't participate in the first session this morning, we explored the obstacles SMEs have to face to go out of their home market, and expand across borders. A lot of key obstacles were identified, from regulatory fragmentation, skills gap, taxation rules, data as well. And this afternoon, we will turn to practical solutions with the aim to equip entrepreneurs and policymakers with a shared roadmap for turning ambition into sustainable cross-border growth. For this, we have three panelists for this debate, three important and experienced women. It is not very much gender balance, but for once, we have women and not men on the stage. Lucia Guzmano. Lucia is senior economist and deputy head of the Entrepreneurship, SME and Tourism division at OECD. Tell me if I am wrong. She leads the work on SME and entrepreneurship transformation at OECD, and she is the author of quite a lot of reports on SMEs. Milena Angelova, she is the Secretary General of the Bulgarian Industrial Capital Association since 2002. She was a member of the EU Social and Economic Committee, and she is well known as an active participant in the policy-making processes in Bulgaria, and she is also the Bulgarian SME envoy. And Vaso Kiru. Vaso is president of Trade Promotion Europe, and she will explain what this organization is doing to support SMEs for trade and investment. She is also the General Director of Communication, Marketing and Stakeholder Network at Enterprise Greece, and which is the official national trade and investment promotion agency of Greece. Yeah. So I have first, if I have the, can I have it? Sorry. A short slide from my side. It doesn't work. Voilà. First, I forgot, of course, to introduce myself at the beginning. You see my name in the screen, and I am the head of unit in charge of SMEs in DG GROW at the European Commission. And I have just one slide to set the scene of the forum with key words concerning internationalization, how to access new markets, competing, enabling SME growth, how to go beyond the significant obstacles we have identified this morning to expand, to compete, what are the key drivers for this, how we can help SME transform these challenges into good opportunities to growth and progress, and what are the practical instruments, solutions to empower SMEs to reach their full potential. So that will be the key lines of our discussions this afternoon. So I will give the floor to each of the speakers for a short presentation, and then we will go for questions from the audience. And for people following online, you also have the possibility to send us questions via Slido. You will have the QR code at the end of the presentation. But let's start with Vaso, and who is going to explain what your network is doing to support SMEs.
Thank you, Marie-Hélène. If you could pass on the baton. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. As Marie-Hélène already explained, my name is Vaso Kirkou. I'm the President of Trade Promotion Europe. It is a pleasure to join you here in beautiful Copenhagen for this year's SME Assembly. As President of Trade Promotion Europe, I represent the network of national and regional trade promotion and agri-food promotion organizations, 34 members to be exact, with over 700 offices across the EU and worldwide. Together, we like to call ourselves the European voice of trade promotion, helping the European SMEs scale up, diversify when it comes to markets, and competing globally. Sorry, I was in a hurry. Commission President von der Leyen recently said that we're entering an era of geoeconomics, an era defined by strategic competition, resilience, and partnership. This shift profoundly affects European SMEs, as many of the other panelists explained this morning. To stay competitive, we must make our companies stronger, more connected, and more resilient. That is precisely what Trade Promotion Europe aims to achieve. We work hand in hand with the European Commission, and we are part of expert groups such as the Global Gateway Business Advisory Group. Through these platforms, we ensure that SME voices and real business needs are taken into consideration when policy is designed. Our mission is to empower our members. Our members are not SMEs. Our members are the trade and agri-food promotion organizations that serve SMEs. We do this through training and peer learning, through information sharing on EU initiatives, through joint projects and best practice exchange, and strategic partnerships that multiply impact. Our members are the front-line actors of Europe's internationalization ecosystem. They provide export advisory services, market access support, matchmaking with buyers and investors, and mentoring for new exporters. They are the ones that are actually turning policy frameworks into measurable SME results. They're also the crucial partners in advancing the green and digital transitions, ensuring that SMEs can compete not only on price, but also on innovation, sustainability, and quality. Our network collectively supports tens of thousands of exporters each year. In 2024 alone, we served 88,000 European companies, half of which were SMEs, and they received guidance, market intelligence, and hands-on assistance through our TPE members. I'm not going to go through our TPE structure. I will only say that we have a board of directors, we have a TPE secretariat that is based in Brussels, and you can also check out our website and find out more information about who is who in our association. Through our working groups and high-level events, we foster an ongoing dialogue among our 34 members and EU institutions. We normally organize to general assemblies, to annual conferences, and over 24 thematic meetings every year, from trade digitalization to agri-food promotion, SME skills upgrading, how to better use FTAs, free trade agreements, in order to reach other markets, how to make use of the standards set by the EU. We also produce impact studies, surveys, and recommendations that feed into EU consultations, helping shape a more coherent, SME-friendly trade and industrial policies. Our joint initiatives support one core goal: to make it easier for European SMEs to scale across border, access finance, and integrate into global value chains. Capacity building is at the heart of our work. Our Export Management Masterclass is Europe's only dedicated program for trade promotion professionals. It combines 8 online sessions and a 2-day seminar in Brussels. By investing in people, we believe that we will create skilled advisors who can help SMEs navigate complex markets, use digital tools, and seize opportunities in emerging sectors. This is how we strengthen the human capital behind Europe's trade efforts. Collaboration is at the heart of what we do. We closely collaborate with Enterprise Europe Network, the Global Gateway Platform, and many other international institutions in order to help the EU's broader goals of strategic autonomy, sustainable growth, and inclusive competitiveness. The motto of today's meeting is Successful SMEs, Competitive Europe. Europe finds itself at a pivotal moment. Our economy and SMEs suffer from low investment, decreasing productivity, inadequate skill levels, difficult demographics, not to mention a climate crisis and a war in our continent. To remain competitive and safeguard our prosperity and freedom, we need to make it as easy as possible for our companies to grow and grow fast. Trade Promotion Europe is fully committed to this exactly mission. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vasu. Now I will give the floor to Medina. Please.
Thank you very much, Marie-Hélène. Good afternoon, dear ladies and gentlemen. It's really very exciting and well-organized SME Assembly, and I'm particularly grateful to the European Commission for putting this important triad of questions, scale up, internationalization and cross-border, at the heart of the discussion by devoting this round of panels, but also devoting tomorrow the forum on the theme. I see this topic of vital importance, and I think that we have tackle this topic not only from the perspective of the current situation and what we can do in a short run, but more importantly for a political perspective and in connection with the next multi-annual financial framework. And I would be tackling this a little bit in a more detail. But let me first take a step back and congratulate Vasu for the excellent work that you do in Trade Promotion Europe. I'm a big fan, you know. And actually, I was comparing your results. You managed to help 88,000 out of 20 million of SMEs, which is, of course, even less than 1%, but it's by far more than the rest of supporting internationalization instruments, because there are a plethora of internationalization support instruments at European and member states level, and the average result for them is between 7 and 22,602 SMEs supported per year. The average SME supported by different measures, by these different instruments, is about 600. So if we really aim to increase by 1 percentage point the data we saw in the morning, which are well below 10% for international markets and quite low for single market, we really have to be more ambitious. And this is the time to do it. And I would like to plead in connection to the proposal of European Competitiveness Fund that we really have to a little bit think more of SMEs, and especially for their support measures. Because as currently stands, the proposal for the European Competitiveness Fund actually targets the European champions. And it says that it will help SMEs by integrating them into the value chains of those European champions. That means will engage the SMEs in international or cross-border activities, and we're not there yet. So we have 2 years to make our homework and to help SMEs to be successful in this commitment in order really to have support measures, or we have to take a step back and say that whenever SMEs should be supported, then the support schemes should be devised, managed at member states level, because there is the capacity. And also, I think that we have to give a little bit more predictability in terms of funding, because currently a lot of programs are running and they give some credit scheme supports, guarantees, or different schemes for SMEs. But after these 2 years, the stakeholders, they don't know what to expect. So we need a little bit more clarity. But let me also stress that scale up, internationalization and cross-border is a lot to do with the competitiveness. And here I would like to really congratulate the European Commission and all the institutions for all the efforts put during the last year and a half for strengthening competitiveness. And one part of this commitment, of course, is the simplification. So we know that the European Union is adopting one legal act per hour. This is the speed. That means 2,500 acts per year. And if the goal for simplification is reached, that is 25% reduction of obligation at EU level or 35% for SMEs, then the net effect for the companies will be 37 billion saving in compliance costs. That actually matches very well the substantial financial gap that is calculated to be 39 billion per year in the European Union. So you can see that at least for 1 year, this can solve the problem. Although the calculations are that for 7-year period, 210 billion is the funding gap, especially for SMEs. And here also is very important, really, it was tackled to unleash the potential of single market. We've been discussing for quite long how to tackle the most burdensome market barriers, like the terrible 10. And one of those includes also opening bank account in another member state or handling this in another member state. And here I think that there are a lot of things to be done. Further ideas to that regard is that a lot of SMEs, they don't know what goes wrong with them when they should access finance. So that's why the ESC was proposing for years, I think the last 10 years, the idea for creating funding and finance ombudsman in the member states and European level. That should tackle every case in order to draw lessons and then to improve the overall performance indicators and the overall process. Then when it comes to support measures for internationalization, it has been a lot of discussions for which measures works, which not. But we can see that there are very much different successful measures at European level and member states level. Here we have to commit during the next 2 years, before we start the next multi-annual financial framework, to create synergies. When it comes to European support measures, it's easier. When it comes to member state support measures, then it's more difficult. But without creating synergies of all these diverse instruments, it will be not possible to reach the 20 million of SMEs. Now, their stories goes that they go international based on personal contacts, so that they have a focal point in the destiny country, so that someone guides them for the requirements and for the different marketing tricks. What I think also Lucia will touch upon is to uptake the digitalization potential in order to really make one single portal that will give the answer for each and every market, at least as kind of standards or permitting procedures. Perhaps also in the future it could be devised in different sectors for this. So I think I'm going to stop here with my 3 messages being: let's get prepared for the next multi-annual financial framework and be quite sure how to calibrate the decisions, including be ready to update the proposal for European Competitiveness Fund. Second, let's commit and be more ambitious on the simplification and really make the SME test functioning together with reality check. And third, let's try to create synergy of all those internationalization support instruments that are currently existing, so that we take stock out of those positive sides and we try to boost them while hedging the negative sides. So I stop here and looking forward to this discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Milena, Lucia, your turn for the presentation.
Thank you, Maria-Hélène, and good afternoon, everybody. I have to say I follow with great fascination the discussion both yesterday evening and today. And one of the reasons is because we had last week at the OECD an SME week, different meetings, committee, where priorities among member and non-member countries have been discussed. And as you may be aware, we are talking about 38 member countries, is mostly EU countries plus North America, South America, Asian countries, etc. And I have to say that it has been interesting to see that priorities more or less align. There is, of course, all the better regulation agenda, the agenda on digitalization, on access to finance, where I think we heard last week a lot of emphasis has been trade, trade, trade. If we look outside of the EU borders, the world of trade, as we used to know, has completely changed. There have been seismic shifts, changes, a sort of the architecture that was there for decades is not there anymore, or it's changing very rapidly. It's certainly tariffs, because this is what gets most of the headlines, and for a reason, because it's historical. Since the Great Depression, basically, we haven't been there. But it's also a lot of non-tariff barriers. We see these through new forms of protectionism that ends up with new non-tariff barriers. We have impact that the single market has to consider, and I think it was discussed earlier in the session on retail. The diversion, for example, of Chinese trade towards Europe. How is Europe going to cope with this? So there are a lot of trickle-down effects from these changes in global trade, in global value chain that are restructuring, and this is already happening since some years, but it has accelerated over the last couple of years, but it was there already. Nearshoring, friendshoring, etc. And all this comes with new challenges for small businesses. I mentioned, for example, the competition from low-cost goods from China, the non-tariff barriers, but of course it comes with opportunities. And I think where we want to focus is also how to seize this opportunity. So in terms of priorities and where instruments are especially needed, we heard this morning about the terrible 10. Regulation, regulatory fragmentation, tax, etc. When we look outside of EU border, this is even amplified. When trading is happening with non-EU countries that do not have some form of agreement, mutual recognition agreement, that means for SMEs, addressing technical regulations, product standards, conformity assessment procedures, labeling rules that are different from the EU one. And of course, this implies disproportionate cost for a small business, even in some cases, a discouragement in front of this high cost and also the difficulty in navigating such an environment. It's a higher per unit cost, fixed compliance cost, the need, for example, to go towards local testing labs or third-party certificates, so a strong increase in complexity and cost. And what we see is that these barriers and these costs are especially high when it comes to services. The OECD produces regularly a service trade restrictiveness index. And what is interesting is that over the past decade, very little has changed. Despite this being very much at the focus of attention, of policy attention, barriers have been very little reduced. In fact, in some non-OECD areas, particularly Africa, they have even increased. And where we see even a greater increase is, for example, in digital trade. Rules on data localization, cross-border data flows, the recognition of e-signature, the format of e-invoicing. When this differs, of course, they create technical, legal blocks for SMEs that intend to use digital platforms to trade. So it's not necessarily services. It's when we talk about digital trade, is all that is traded through digital platforms, for example. And then we have to consider, I think, another aspect that I think is important to think about the solution: the trickle-down effects. Internationalization happens also indirectly through global value chain. So when we talk about regulation, we have always, I think, to take into account that for SMEs that grow, that connect with global networks, even if they are on the paper exempted from those regulations, in fact, they will have to comply with the requests that come from larger buyers, larger companies that are subject to regulation, or financial institutions. The OECD platform on financing SME for sustainability undertook a survey of financial institutions globally a couple of years ago, public and commercial banks, and more than 60% highlighted that a key challenge they face is getting data from SMEs with regard to their sustainability capacity to report on sustainability. So what are the solutions there? I think, for example, that in the case of environmental regulation, sustainability reporting, a very important progress has been made in the EU with the voluntary standard for non-listed SMEs, the sustainability reporting standard, the VSME. It's voluntary, but I think it sets a benchmark. There is, of course, the question of raising awareness, of making this voluntary standard more used, so the role that at different levels of government, even at the local one, by public-private parties, they can have in promoting the use of something that is proportional, simplified, and standardized. At the OECD, we have been also working at the global level on promoting convergence in sustainability reporting framework, so also to identify a core of metrics, indicators that on the one hand respond to the needs of financial institutions, but are also proportionate and feasible and clear for small businesses. So I think this SME lens in standards, regulation is of course essential. I would add here, it's essential also in free trade agreements, in trade policy chapter. We see that more and more free trade agreements have these days SME provisions, SME chapter. We see less of a reflection of these in digital trade chapters in agreements. Mutual recognition agreement, if you take, for example, the new UK trade strategy, it's very much focused on mutual recognition agreement with emerging economies, Asia, Middle East, the mutual recognition of qualification when it comes to services. This is essential. But I think we should also focus on the other parts of the cycle in the regulation. Yes, it's SME lens when the regulation is designed, but then there are all the stages in the implementation. Scaling technical assistance in standard compliance, capacity building, toolkits, advisory services, as you are doing. This is absolutely essential, but also a step-by-step guidance to comply. We see from surveys a lot of discouragement by SMEs that seem to be overwhelmed but what looks to be a mass of regulation that doesn't necessarily interest them. But the problem is to navigate, to understand what is really important for me. And this is, for example, where I think AI will play an increasingly important role. So to facilitate compliance and have, in this facilitation of compliance, a closer collaboration, public and private sector, as I think the private sector has a lot of means and antennas to reach out to SMEs.
Okay, thank you very much, Lucia. Thank you to, thanks to each of you for these presentations. I think it gives a good panorama of the different aspects of the solutions SME can find. We will continue with questions. I will start with some ice-breaking questions, starting with us, and following up on your presentation on Trade Promotion Europe. Could you maybe tell us more specifically, in practice, what models are emerging among your members to close, in particular, the trade finance gap for SMEs ready to scale internationally? So specifically on these aspects. Thank you.
For many SMEs, the difference between ambition and achievement is actually access to finance. And I'm not talking about finance for innovation or finance for whatever. I'm talking about trade finance to execute orders now. Too often, many companies lose opportunities simply because they cannot secure a short-term guarantee or a pre-shipment agreement. What a lot of SMEs do not know is that trade promotion organizations around Europe have the tools that can help them. Many European TPOs provide or facilitate export credit insurance to protect SMEs against the risk of non-payment by foreign buyers. A lot of our countries also have export credit agencies that are mandated to do exactly that. Some TPOs collaborate with commercial banks, which is not a well-known fact, to improve SMEs' access to credit by offering partial agreements, partial guarantees on export-related loans. Some TPOs offer direct export finance, often at favorable rates to fund production, marketing, or delivery of export orders. As Trade Promotion Europe, what we are trying to do is put all those available schemes in the different member states in map all those different tools in order to try and suggest to the EU or to anyone or to other institutions how we can actually conform these measures that we offer to SMEs. But these tools are already available, not in all countries, not in all member states, but in a lot of them.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Now a question for you, Lucia. You mentioned it, OECD is working with a lot of countries outside the EU. And among the solutions emerging to support SMEs, to help them to overcome challenges and seize new opportunity, what is the role of digital tools? I mean, we mentioned already digitalization as an important key factor to support SMEs, but can you develop a bit more on this?
Yeah, I think that digital tools are really a game changer when we talk about access to trade directly, exporting, but also indirectly participation in global value chain, B2B commerce. And I think they are a game changer because they make a huge difference when it comes to the long-standing challenges for a small business to participate in trade, which is information asymmetry, administrative burden, and also limited access to resources that are strategic for trading, be it commercial network, trade finance, but also access to the skills, the professional profiles that may help the SMEs export or, again, participate in global value chain. We see already a large degree of implementation with what regards improving access to information, B2B platforms, digital marketplaces, all of these, they are making very visible the opportunities, the international demand. They are facilitating matchmaking, but also a better understanding of regulatory requirements, buyers' requirements. And often these are digital platforms that include checklists, sector-specific guides. So they also come to that degree of tailoring that can respond to a specific need. I mentioned earlier AI, and again, in something that is a game changer, AI is completely again changing the game, because it may enable, for example, to access a digital platforms and already tailor the information that is needed based on the characteristic of the business. So reduce the time for search and make more of a personalized experience in the use of this platform. It's making a difference in terms of cost reduction and simplification, e-custom systems, paperless documentation, although, as I mentioned earlier, digital is not enough, because it needs to come with some political steps, like mutual recognition agreement, so that the paperless documentation is equally accepted among the trading partners. It enhances access to trade finance, through, for example, blockchain-based invoicing or electronic know your customer processes. We see, for example, the use of digital fintech for a better credit scoring, so improving the credit risk assessment, and in this way overcoming information asymmetries that normally make it difficult for small business to access trade finance. However, all of these demands enablers. First of all, it's regulatory frameworks, so very clear and interoperable rules for digital trade, but it's also harmonization of digitalization standard in Europe and across the borders to reduce fragmentation. It requires digital infrastructure, connectivity, but also when mentioning the digital platforms, we can consider these also as public-private goods. So how to facilitate, for example, digital custom portals, or the development of electronic ID systems, the dream of a digital identity that can help overcome a lot of complexities. And then it requires digital maturity. What we have seen is a lot of new solutions in the market, marketplace, portals, but the demand that doesn't always keep up. And it doesn't always keep up because it's a question of capacity building. It's a question of digital skills. And I would say importantly, it's a question of data governance. All of this is based on data. So it's access to data, use of data, protection of data. Protection of data is essential, especially in the global networks, to participate in global value chain. A few years ago, Toyota had to shut down because one single small supplier in a small province of Japan was hacked. So there was an hacking incident, and this shut down all Toyota production in Japan for a couple of days. Just imagine the cost. This means that being digitally ready, also in terms of digital security, will become a prerequisite to access any international production network.
Thank you. Thank you for this. So access to finance, digitalization. Now my last question will be for you, Milena, maybe from a more general point of view. According to you, how SMEs should be best prepared for this triad, as you say, scale up, internationalization, and cross-border, and what kind of other boosting factors would you suggest?
Thank you very much. It's really a pleasure to be in this panel, because I think everything is very well set up by Vasso and by Lucia, and I just subscribe, so I can continue from that point. First of all, to help SMEs really is necessary to understand better their needs. We've been saying for ages, I can feel, that making a common policy for 99.8% of the SME community, which is a business community, which are the SMEs, is actually nonsense from marketing point of view. So that's why I think we are speaking here about more devised measures, based on a more precise segmentation of SMEs. So different SMEs, they have different needs. We cannot target 20 million of companies with the same measures. And I think this is what also Lucia is talking about. Of course, the good news is that the digitalization and AI gives us the instruments to answer those needs and also to keep record, to understand better those needs of the different segments. So this will be the first reply better segment and answer the particular needs of the SME communities, because it's not the same if the SME is coming from the production sector or is highly innovative or is committed to daily entrepreneurship, as very well described yesterday during the Schumpeter lecture. I think also the European support policy is focusing on driving high-tech innovation or different challenges that are ahead, but forgetting for this daily commitment to entrepreneurship. And as rightly pointed yesterday, even if SME is committed to pay even the salary for one person, to provide for one family, still it merits attention. So for me, this is very important. Third element, of course, is to tackle the terrible 10. We've been discussing so much for the European single market, and yet the companies are facing the same obstacles as almost when we began with. And the most important, of course, are the access to funding when it comes to different settings into the different member states. Recent studies show that SMEs are struggling even to open a bank account in another member state. So how they can then imagine to go abroad in a totally different outset and to go international. Of course, we have the instruments, but we have 20 million of customers to access those instruments, so we have to devise better. And having said that, I think that one big challenge for making the new instruments for the next multi-annual financial framework is that actually they are designed for a perfect world where the single market is operating flawlessly and where the administration is really very open-minded and having the needs of SMEs very close to the heart and performing all the SMEs tests and simplification efforts at the start, which is not there yet. So again, let me repeat myself. Either we do this within the next 2 years, or we change a little bit of the architecture of support measures that are proposed for the next MFF and still keep it a little bit more national and not going only at European level. So the next formula, of course, it will be just to engage a little bit more and better with the international networks. For example, we have SME Assembly every year. At the same time, somewhere in the Arab world, they have Arab SME Assembly, which is a huge thing. About 3,000 companies are there, and it's under the UN ESCWA Commission. So I've been contributing to there for the last 3 years. And it's quite a good idea sometimes to link the two, for example. And this is only one example of those kind of worldwide promotion measures that can be really uptaken. And let me give one last example. For example, we were having from the ESC a mission to Brazil. And Brazilian market is very open to goods. There are not a lot of European companies going there. And this is because it's very far away. And this is because we need a little bit more systematic effort to inform the SMEs about those opportunities and to accompany them to start at least the journey. Because what we saw, they struggle with the language. Okay, there are digital tools that they can, with the support of artificial intelligence, translate at the same time that someone types or interpret at the same time one speaks. And then we have quite good portals when we can say what are the requirements, at least in terms of entering, and who will be the focal point in terms of questions. So all these recipes are valid for the triad, but the most important is not to say that we've done it all and now it's up to SMEs to go international. It's not the case. They still need to be accompanied. Last but not least, as Lucia pointed, is the burdensome legislation, and we are waiting for the omnibus to remedy those things that were written in small letters, so they were not intended for SMEs, but hit them with the trickle down, and to really go for voluntary instruments like voluntary SME standard. So I stop here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's now turn to the audience and see if we have some questions. I have a lady on the first row, so the micro is coming. Yeah.
Thank you. My name is Burçak İnal. I worked some years on access to finance. And first, I'd like to commend the OECD for their work on SMEs, and in particular the platform on SMEs sustainability, financing SME sustainability, of which my organization was a knowledge partner. So I saw the impact of the work that also went along with the EU's own efforts to simplify the framework. My question is about, maybe it's for Lucia and maybe also for others, if we compare the EU's SMEs with the SMEs of other jurisdictions, of other countries, how well do they fare in terms of international trade, in terms of the ability to deal with the complexity, the terrible 10? Because you were talking about the fact that terrible 10 is terrible 1,000 maybe in international trade. But I would assume that the EU's SMEs are nonetheless able to handle a little bit of complexity. How do they fare when you compare them with other jurisdictions' SMEs? Thank you.
Okay, Lucia.
Yes, it's very interesting question. I think it could be the subject of a report in itself, as I don't have, we don't have a dedicated survey on this. What I can say, considering the overall return that we have from countries, is that EU SMEs are concerned by regulation, but they are used to complexity. Because I think of the nature of the EU construction that comes with different speed, so that there is an agility with regard to the complexity that I think comes from the fact that they have to deal with these probably at a higher scale than in other countries. I think what we note, and this I'm thinking in particular at some demand that we receive from the US. The European market continues to be seen as a very precious market. So while there is, of course, concern about the overburden for European SMEs to be able to compete globally, companies around the world, they are willing to make the investment to comply with EU regulation in high value added segments, etc. So it's true that it can be something that slows down the investment. We heard, I think, over these couple of days, how this can be perceived as being a brake on competitiveness. At the same time, I think it makes the bar higher, also for those that want to enter, of course, legally and complying, the European market. So it's not really addressing your point, but it's the outside, they need to make a step further in order to comply with EU rules. And normally, there is a lot of interest, especially in a high value added market or segments, because of the richness that this implies. And I think there is an opportunity there. And it's an opportunity in terms of technology transfer, it's an opportunity in terms of learning. It's an opportunity, I think it was mentioned this morning, to export EU standards and so to raise the bar. But of course, this also means a lot of monitoring on compliance, that those entering the European markets are in fact complying with the rules.
Thank you. Vasu, you want to compliment?
Actually, I just wanted to add that although EU standards are very complicated and they may create a lot of hassle for the SMEs, at the same time, I think that they are a competitive advantage of the European SMEs, because if you are an EU certified company, at the same time, you are globally trusted. And that gives you a competitive advantage versus other SMEs that they may be competing for the same thing. So it's really it's how you look at the coin, okay? There's always pros and cons. So yes, the standards are very problematic in the sense that they're very complex. At the same time, once you achieve those standards and you are certified, then you're accepted everywhere. You can sell everywhere. You're competitive. So that's something to also consider at the same time.
Kind of contra-Brussels effect, as we say.
Exactly.
Milena.
So also, I think it's the question for the motivation and incentives. As Lucia rightly pointed, the European market is quite attractive. So why the European SMEs then to abandon this very attractive domain where they, with a little bit of efforts, comply with the standards, and then they can sell within the European single market and go abroad where the risks are higher, including political risks, risks to not to know the regulation. So perhaps the most important thing is to focus on the single market being fluent and try to go step by step. First, the efforts to incentivize and accompany the SMEs being more successful at the European market where they have a higher participation. We saw that some of them are reaching almost 30% in terms of scale-ups, for example. And then, as a next step, to think about going international only for those markets that are the most interesting, or in cases where the European economic security strategy demands those kind of shifts, and then we put an extra effort to target those markets.
A step-by-step approach. Maybe we open, okay, I don't know which one, here.
Thank you very much. My name is Daniela Peva. I'm chairperson of Bulgarian Investor Relations Association. Thank you for the nice panel, ladies. And I'm very proud working with Milena Angelova more than 20 years, supporting SMEs in Bulgaria, especially listed companies, because in Bulgaria, 99% of the listed companies are SMEs. And my question related for this topic, my question is a little bit provocative, because the question is not how to keep European SMEs listed in European market, and is it possible, still possible, to keep them listed in Europe, in European market, because it's not the secret that a lot of SMEs, especially innovative SMEs, they are in USA, they are going public there because the market is more friendly, the listing process is more simple.
Okay, anyone wants to take that one briefly, because I see there was a lot of hands raised.
Of course, I think also in the room there will be a lot of reflections on the Capital Market Union and the question of Daniela. Of course, one effort was really to mobilize the potential of the capital markets to fund SMEs, and a lot of efforts were made also at national markets, including BEAM segments or special listing schemes. But I think that in that regard, the European legislation is a little bit in-depth for the SMEs, because still at the beginning of CMU initiative, there were very ambitious approach to really help SMEs get listed as a fast track with a single prospect. And we see that it's not materializing. So this is one of the next item of our wish list to carry forward.
Yeah, certainly. Okay, please, on the front.
Thank you very much. Andreas Stefanidis from Academy of Entrepreneurship of Greece. Congratulations for the fantastic insights. My question is how we can valorize the successful experience of the Erasmus for Young Entrepreneurs program that started 2009 at European level with more than 14,000 of relationship between new and host entrepreneurs to continue the internationalization of SMEs, also in strategic countries outside of Europe, because now it started in US, in UK, in Singapore, and also in Canada. So I think it is a fantastic program. We can boost and reinforce more the SMEs, the successful SMEs, the new and the experienced. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It makes me make the link with a question we have in Slido as well, which is exactly the same, saying that Erasmus for Young Entrepreneurs is a successful program since 2000. It was you. Okay. I mean, okay. So you intervene both online and in the room. Good. Okay. Who wants to take that one on Erasmus for Young Entrepreneurs? We have no specialist in the room.
No, maybe
but,
I can just react on the fact that I think it should be scaled up. It should be scaled up. We can talk about regulation, we can talk about digital. The personal networks are a huge driver of commercial relations, success, network. I think not only in terms of, let's say, direct relation with suppliers or buyers in another country, but also in terms of partnerships, which are, I think, another form for scaling up in cross-border trade. There is the internal growth of the business, and then there are the alliances, the partnership, the joint venture. And the access to networks, commercial network, investor networks is essential. We held a couple of weeks ago, in fact, with the European Commission in Brussels, an event, Youth Entrepreneurship Policy Academy, with the colleagues in DG Employment. And this aspect of the networks by young entrepreneurs has come over and over. I think one way to see it is also the negative side. For example, when we talk about women entrepreneurs, and particularly young women entrepreneurs, the lack of networks is always highlighted as a formidable obstacle, making the difference in their capacity to scale, to access market, but also access resources, expertise. So to me, it's just to say that this type of program, I think they are commendable, and I think it's for, of course, the European Commission also to think if and how this could be scaled up.
Yeah, just on this to follow up, we have an action on female entrepreneurship financed under the Single Market Program, the SME pillar in particular, which is still ongoing. So we support this type of network as well. Vasu, you want to complement very quickly, because I see we only have less than 3 minutes now.
Very quickly, just a very concrete example. Trade promotion organizations are state organizations, and part of their mandate is to organize the national pavilions at different trade fairs. What Trade Promotion Europe did at the beginning was to map where each one of us is participating at trade fairs. And among the first things that we did is bring the mission together with other missions. If Bulgaria is there, and Greece is there, and Spain is there, it's crazy, to my mind at least, that these companies do not get together and talk to each other. That's a network right there. And I'm not talking about nuclear physics here, okay? It's common sense. They're all there at Anuga or whatever. So it makes sense for them to get together and see whether they can collaborate, talking about the single market and doing business within the single market. Thank you. That was quick.
That's okay. We have maybe time for another question, a last one. If not, we can take one from Slido. Maybe the last one, because I think the second one on initiative under the single market, I think we covered it quite a lot. Maybe the last one, how to square EU supply chain regulation requirements with diversification needs.
That's a very, very good question, because it combines the needs with the complication of the legal framework. I think that we have to stay very much agile, and this is in the architecture that we see also in the proposal for the European Competitiveness Fund, for promoting cooperations in those domains that they will bring added value by answering to underlying needs of the European Union strategic autonomy. So I think that in that case, the regulations should be shaped together with the value chain leader. And most importantly, what I would like to see is a serious effort to promote and to motivate the supply chain leaders to reshore their value chains within the European Union. Then it will be a safe harbor, and it will be a double effect by promoting the European SMEs while hedging against political or geopolitical risks going abroad and international. It is in a kind of contradiction for the team of the panel now, but when it comes to European champions, I think that being champions, they should share their success inside the European Union before going international, and then the value chain leader also can hedge the risk for going international by carrying together the value chain that's based in Europe.
Thank you very much. And to conclude on this, it's a work we want to, on the value chain, I mean, exploring the role and the place of SMEs in the different value chains. It's something we want to explore further in my unit as well in the coming weeks and months. Okay, thank you very much to all of you. I hope this panel brought some, if not solution, I mean some good trends, some good experience, some good ideas on how we can support SMEs to become more international. And so I hope it was useful for all of you. Thanks a lot. Thanks to the panelists, of course. And okay, let's continue the SME Assembly with some other panels, some other events today, tonight, and tomorrow as well. Thank you.